Are the government guilty of hypocrisy, as they say we should now wear face masks, but in the House of Commons not many Tories were today? And let's talk about how well or badly we think Boris Johnson's government has handled this. Yes, I know they keep telling us it was unprecedented. Indeed it was. But how well or badly have they handled it? And are we moving towards vaccine passports? And how would you at home feel about that? And I'm going to ask the audience here in Folkestone how they would feel about carrying vaccine passports. So joining me this evening to discuss this is Nigel Nelson. We've got a very rare Christian name, haven't we? There were no Nigels born last year. I think it could be your fault, actually, not mine. I'm not sure. Because you are, of course, political editor of the Sunday Mirror, a Labour-supporting newspaper, a Remain newspaper, and generally pretty critical of this government. And alongside you is Claire Pearsall, who takes the opposite view on virtually everything, a Leaver, a Conservative councillor in Sevenoaks, you both live in the county, and a supporter of Boris Johnson and the government. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have two people here, diametrically opposed to each other politically, but here's the remarkable thing. Not only do they live in Kent, but they're actually married. How about that? Let's begin perhaps with what may be the more critical voice. Have this government led through the COVID crisis or been blown around by events, Nigel?
Totally blown around. I mean, from the start, you can understand that not a lot was known about the virus at the beginning of the pandemic, but they got pretty much everything wrong. So the herd immunity idea, which they started out with would have killed 500,000 people. Okay, again, they didn't know very much at that point. What they did know last year was that if they'd locked down a week earlier, lives would have been saved. What they also knew last year is that if they hadn't taken patients out of hospital and discharged them into care homes with COVID, at least 20,000 more older people would now be alive. So it was mistake after mistake all the way through. The vaccines, of course, have made us all feel much better. We can now go around the place without masks, we can socialise, we can do things we couldn't do last year.
For now?
For now, yeah. And the danger at the moment is that he's about to make the same mistakes he made last year again. Infections are going up far too high. We're doing 40,000 infections a day. That compares 9,000 in Germany.
The last 24 hours, the figure was 52,000.
Well, that would compare with 9,000 in Germany, 5,000 in France, 3,000 in Italy. We have the highest infection rate in Western Europe. And the only way that we can actually keep those infections down is to lock down. It's the one thing that's been proved to absolutely work.
You want to lock us down
again? No, I don't.
Again?
What I want is for them to act before a lockdown happens. The way to act is get a plan B in position, and that means masks, social distancing, working from home, and COVID passports.
Well, there you are. So, Claire, it is difficult to disagree that some very big mistakes were made.
Yeah.
I mean, the emptying out of the wards of people who were COVID positive into the old people's homes was dreadful and prematurely ended the lives of 20,000 people. That's unarguable. But overall, how do you feel they've handled it? Are they leading or are they following?
I think this is really difficult, and when you start looking at numbers of infections, it doesn't take into account that you have children in those figures. You have young children. So schools.
Yeah.
Schools have been a vector of infection, as most parents will attest to. However, children are not becoming incredibly ill. They are also, majority of them, under the age of the vaccination programme in place currently, and will therefore become relatively immune to COVID. So they're being put into this figure, which is bumping it up. And we all knew from the beginning of September that that would happen. So I think if you remove those, you would get a much more accurate view of what the infection rate actually is. But I think you need to also look at how ill it is making people. The majority of people are vaccinated twice. So therefore, they are not becoming as ill as they would have done.
But now we're being told to get a third vaccination, and if we're over 50, to get a flu vaccination as well. And people are getting a bit bored with this.
Yes, they are. People generally don't like being told what to do because it will have an end result. So it's have a jab, otherwise we'll take your freedoms away. Now, I don't agree with that messaging. I think that sends out all of the wrong reasons to people to go and have it. And people tolerated it last year. They got messed around at Christmas. They made plans which were withdrawn.
Well, they did,
and
isn't it funny
it's not right to do it again?
You know, Christmas was cancelled by Boris, your party leader, and yet now we learn that in Downing Street, their mate Nimco Ali was there spending Christmas with them, and they claim that because she was part of a child support bubble. I mean, we've seen minister after minister, public figure after public figure, who telling us what we can and can't do, and the fact we can't see our grandparents or whatever else it is, and yet broke the rules themselves.
And denies breaking the rules, and yet the rules are perfectly clear. You can have a childcare bubble, that's fine, but it's actually for childcare. It's not for going around for Christmas lunch.
Yeah, well, I have to say, I do think that's right. Claire, if it comes to it, how do you feel as a Conservative councillor, a representative in this county, how do you feel about COVID passports? Do they make sense on medical grounds? And moreover, do they make sense in terms of living in a free, open democracy?
No, they don't. It goes against everything that is a free and open democracy and everything that it stands for. I can understand them if you wish to travel to a country that requires you to show something, as you would for vaccinations to go to a country if you have to have yellow fever, typhoid. You suck that up and you have it and you take your yellow card with you. But for walking into your local Wetherspoons, into a cafe, into a cinema, into a bowling alley, no, absolutely not. It's going to stop those businesses from being able to run. And haven't we hit businesses enough already over the last 18 months?
Well, I think certainly the smaller private businesses have paid a big price.
Well,
do you think we're going to have COVID passports introduced in England?
I mean, who knows? They say no, but then they mull it over, and I do worry about the U-turn coming from this. However, there is a real vocal force at play in the party. The likes of Steve Baker, for argument's sake, is very against that, and the backbenches are full of those people having the same thoughts and who are willing to speak out.
And Nigel, you think that it's a price worth paying on health grounds, we should follow the medical advice, and it's going to happen anyway?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Claire, in fact, it sort of makes that point, that if you want to do something, if you want to travel abroad, you get your yellow fever jabs and anything you need to do. So what I'm against is actually jabs for jobs. I don't think somebody should be made to have a jab to do their job, because working is a right. But if you want to go to a nightclub, if you want to go to a pub, I don't see anything wrong about having to show a COVID passport while COVID is still there.
But COVID could be there for 5 years, for 10 years.
It may be here forever.
So you want us to have these vaccine passports forever?
No, I'm just saying that we have it as long as COVID is, and if it is forever, yes, we will have to carry on doing it. And eventually it'll become second nature. You'll just show your COVID passport.
Papers, please. Papers, please.
Well,
is that the country we want to live in?
Well, no, it's not, but I don't want to live in a COVID country either. And what I want to do is try and do something about getting rid of this disease. And the best way of doing that is not to keep locking down, opening up, and then catching it again. So that's what I'm really after. And I think COVID passports will be a way to stop it spreading.
Final question to both of you. And by the way, if COVID passports do come in, and you're invited out to dinner, you're staying at home, aren't you? Because you won't have a COVID passport.
In my house,
final question. If we do get to this, and I sense this debate is going to be the big debate over the course of the next few weeks. I can see it, I can feel it. Clearly infections are rising, hospitalisations are rising. Most of it's young people, but it's not solely young people. I do think Tony Blair's influence on this government is remarkable in terms of policy that they've adopted and taken. If it comes to us being told we have to carry COVID passports, do you think the great British public will comply with this, as they have with virtually everything else over the last 2 years?
No, I don't. I think this is a step too far, and everybody has put in place they've adhered to all of the restrictions. I think this one now is taking it too far for the majority of people.
Okay, Nigel?
I think they'll comply. I mean, I think the British public have been remarkable since this started. Boris Johnson didn't believe we would actually stay in our houses when the lockdown was ordered.
And we did.
And we did.
And we did.
And we behaved ourselves really well,
Yeah.
and I think that it was one step further to trying to live a normal life. Eventually, we'll go for it.
Let's ask our crowd here in Folkestone. If COVID passports are brought in, are you going to comply and do it? You see, the people of Kent have always been so rebellious, and clearly they are too here in Folkestone this evening.